Hello and welcome back to another episode of Only a Bag, an Italy travel podcast. I'm Darcy Melton.
And I'm Nathaniel Malor.
Nathaniel is smiling at me. Is it because I sound so nasally?
You did not even, what is it, 2 hours after the last recording last episode, we took a little walk. We're like, we should just get out of the house, take a walk, and then come back, walk through a whole bunch of smoke. Not like from a fire, it's just winter now and people are having smoke, and Darcy's allergies decided that, you know what, today's a good day to just make it life living painfully.
Yeah, I've sneezed a lot in the last couple of hours, and now my nose is stuffy.
So this was fun. This was a fun discovery. And today we're going to be we're actually going to picking up where we left off and talking about day trips to the sea, basically the seaside, islands, water features.
Perfect. I love that. And before we get into it, as always, we want to thank everybody who has been following us and leaving reviews. If you want to do that, if you enjoy this episode, you can follow us and or leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also, if you want more information, go to onlyabag.com where we have lots of different articles. You can also contact us there if you have any specific comments or questions. You can find us as well on Instagram at onlyabagpodcast.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Oh, and you can donate to us if you want to. One, by using the affiliate links in the description. Are we still putting hotels in the description for Naples?
I think for day trips we'll probably do that, or at least maybe transportation, something like that. Something that is important to your day trip.
Awesome. So if you purchase something through one of our affiliate links, we will get a small kickback from the company. It doesn't cost you anything extra. And also you can donate directly to us if you so choose on ko-fi.com, which is ko-fi.com/onlyabag.
Perfect. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much. So
Jumping
water
into it.
features.
Yeah.
In watery places.
We talked about this in the last episode on day trips, which for us was mere hours ago, though it really does not sound like it. And we mentioned that it's almost kind of goes without saying that when you visit Naples, you will do a day trip. Do a day trip. I already sound like somebody, but you will visit. There we go. The Amalfi Coast, or Sorrento, or Capri, or Ischia, Procida, whatever. You'll figure out some water and involve it in your trip.
It is also very close to a lot of other places.
It is, yes, it is a lot. Well, I think as the crow flies and as trains will occasionally run, it is. But I think when you do get, and I think part of this episode we did want to focus on the getting there and the sort of just, as we've talked about before, we also have articles on this a lot. I know it's a little silly, but I did try to make articles on like from Naples to Sorrento, Naples to Positano, Naples to just different things, because I realized that you might not take, even though one might be farther along the same route, you might want to go a different route type of thing.
Yeah.
So this is going to be not so much why you should go, though we will talk a little bit about Procida, I think, in Ischia, but specifically how to get there. Why you should go, I think, is potentially self-evident. Maybe not. Maybe we'll.
I think for a lot of these places it will be. A little bit less than I think it was our last episode, we talked about places to visit by land, and some of those were a little bit more obscure.
Yes,
These,
for sure,
I think a lot of people know about.
Absolutely.
So the one that I think lots and lots of people know about is the Amalfi Coast.
Which
is very close to Naples. So basically to get to the Amalfi Coast, which is several towns between Naples and then Sorrento is next, going south, and then around from Sorrento is the Amalfi Coast. And then finally Salerno, which we talk about all the time if you've listened to this podcast. So basically, you have to go, like I said, around the tip of Sorrento in order to get to Amalfi, right? Or any of those cities.
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
And Sorrento is closer to Naples, and I think people think of Sorrento as being a part of the Amalfi Coast. Experience-wise, it's not that different. No offense to either of those places. They are similar enough, but it is not technically on the Amalfi Coast.
I would say they're similar, and if I may, because it is good. I think there's a really valid question. I think it's something I see a lot on Reddit. Is I'm going to go to Amalfi. I want to go to a day somewhere. Should I just go to Sorrento because it's closer, it's easy to get to a train, and then spend the day there, or should I really try to make it to the Amalfi Coast? Mm-hmm. And as you mentioned, so it's essentially part of the issue is the Amalfi Coast is quite mountainous. Yes. It's something you really only understand when you're seeing it, but it's essentially very sharp spires of rock. And so that's not easily traversable in terms of you can't really go. I mean, there are like towns up and in it. And I think actually the bus from Sorrento to Positano will go through it, but it's very difficult to kind of cross the middle bit. Even from Salerno to Naples, if you take the train or the bus, or the train, not the bus, it will be in a tunnel for most of the way because it just goes through the mountain rather than over the mountain.
Right.
Which is all simple to say. It's a bit difficult necessarily to get to the Amalfi Coast. It can feel a little bit like close, but not easy to arrive to, essentially.
Close but hard to get to.
Exactly. So I think if you, it's and as you mentioned, Sorrento and the Amalfi Coast are quite similar in the vibe, in the aesthetic. I would argue that like maybe Sorrento has more, if you're interested kind of in walking around like the olive grove, not olive grove, the lemon grove type area. There you can kind of get up into the hill behind Sorrento a lot easier. So if that is something that's interesting to you, especially if you're like a painter, photographer, anything like that, anybody, if you just want to kind of get out a little bit of the really touristy core of Sorrento, I would also argue though, and I could be wrong here, I'd love to hear from other people, especially those who live in Sorrento, that some of the towns or most of the towns in the Amalfi Coast have a more of a individual identity or unique identity than Sorrento. Like with Vietre sul Mare being known for ceramics, for example. It just seems like everybody has kind of a very specific, we have this one thing. Right. Cettara has their alici, the anchovies, or, so it's like we have our thing. And I think with Sorrento, it's lemons, obviously, but so is Amalfi. So it's like, okay, what's your other thing? Or vice versa. And I think, I don't really know what Amalfi's is. It's sort of a bus interchange, so I don't know. But Sorrento has, definitely there's things there. There are beautiful churches there as well, just as you might find in Positano. There are little ceramic places. There are limoncello places. There's the Bagno della Regina, which is a Roman ruins, and then later it was a sort of a queen's villa, and then turned into, there was her private beach, and then now it's a public beach. It's a bit of a walk / bus ride. The walk is much more extensive than the bus ride, but this is all simple to say is it has a little bit of everything. So if you kind of went one place, I think Sorrento, yeah.
Plus, I think in previous episodes, I was saying that I wouldn't necessarily take a day trip to Sorrento. Maybe I was saying I wouldn't stay in Sorrento and then go to Naples, which I stand by. One thing, I guess two things I want to say is that
I'm not wrong. I'm still right.
is that Sorrento is fairly touristy.
Yes.
And it's easy to visit, which is part of the reason. And that's not a bad thing. It's just here's what to expect, really. And a positive I will say about Sorrento versus the Amalfi Coast is that I believe you get some sunset in Sorrento.
I think
just
so
because
as
of its
well,
position.
yeah.
And the Amalfi Coast, you don't. It's kind of on the wrong side.
Because it looks south, so you do get a lot of sun, but especially you're right, actually, because it looks...
And maybe it depends on the time of year.
Yeah, I think it really depends on the time of year, but I do think that is... I think it depends on the time of year, but I think at least Sorrento, a lot of Sorrento, you can actually still see east for most of the year because there isn't another mountain in the way. But I think because it is so much farther over, that's the thing. I think it's easy to think of it's north and then Positano south, but actually Positano is a pretty decent ways to the east as well. So there's a number of ridges and mountains between it and the sun.
That's the thing. I think Positano and Amalfi, I think I could be wrong, but they are a bit blocked by mountains because of the curve that the coastline takes, where Sorrento is not necessarily blocked off by that curve. That's
Absolutely.
All.
And as we mentioned, I just want to throw out the other two. It's the same way to get, as we talked about Herculaneum and Pompeii, it's actually the same way the Circumvesuviana will get you from Naples to Sorrento. One thing I did want to note, I believe on both trains, Circumvesuviana and Campania Express, the train station you get it from, and I wanted to make note of this because I think both on like all the official stuff is they make note there is no way to get there. There's an escalator and a staircase, but there's no elevator there. So there's no way to get there basically and no easy way to get there with a wheelchair.
And this is at like Napoli Centrale, the central station. I think I remember that from taking one of those trains. It's
a bit of a weird location because it's not actually in with the other trains. It's kind of in a different area.
Right.
And it's a bit of a walk. So I say that too in case you are planning on a day trip and you're coming. Again, some people do day trips from Rome. So if you're thinking if you're listening more about Rome information, you're like, oh, this is interesting. You can still do it, but it's not necessarily in the same station area. It's a little bit of a way. It's a little, when I say a little bit of ways, a 5-minute walk kind of thing, not like 20-minute walk. But it is the official sort of transit website makes it very clear that there's no elevator. So if that's something you need, you can't take the train there. I think you can later down the line, though, take it. Because I think like in Pompeii, it's street level.
Right.
I haven't been on it like in a year, but I don't remember going up or down. I remember it just being, you get off the train and you walk straight and you're at the front entrance of Pompeii.
I don't know what the other accessibility
things,
I can't remember exactly what the station looks like, but but ground level wise, I think you are
And I
right
think
there.
Sorrento, it is a ramp, I believe. So it's which is not amazing, but it's something.
Something, yeah. So once you get, if you take the Circumbusipiana or the
Campania
Campania
Express.
Express to Sorrento from Naples, can you stay on that train going to the Amalfi Coast, or do you have to change?
No, so all trains end in Sorrento.
I thought so.
So you will, if you have a ticket for something, or if you're like, sometimes they'll bundle a ticket together, or the Cita Sud will sometimes have a bundled ticket. You have to change to a Cita Sud bus in Sorrento, which should be right outside the train station. Or if you have a different bus, there are private bus companies that do it as well, but but other bus companies that do it as well, and that will take you to Positano. I do want to throw in there. I mean, this is a great great segue. I think, not giving myself credit, giving you credit, because it is weirdly in the summer months it actually seems better, because there seems to be fewer lines in the summer months because they're running more buses. It seems to be in the shoulder seasons, April, May, and then like kind of that September, October is actually where, because they start like kind of bringing down the amount of buses they
Yeah,
run.
they run fewer buses, so the availability just isn't there for the amount of
Exactly,
tourism.
and they will pile people on the buses, but it's like if everybody has a piece of luggage or anything like that, if you're staying there, not going for a day trip, it can be kind of a madhouse to get on the bus from Positano. And the reason I did want to mention that is just because if you're thinking, oh, it's gonna be really chill, we're gonna get on the bus, go to Positano, have a day in Positano, and you see the line, it's not a bad idea to sort of pivot and be like, you know what, we're gonna stay in Sorrento. That's not
I
a bad
agree.
idea. Just in
I
terms
think
of
if you would like to do a day trip to somewhere like Sorrento, the Amalfi Coast, that general vibe from Naples, I think Sorrento makes more sense. It's just getting there is a bit more relaxed.
And I was thinking, especially if you have kids or if you're traveling with anybody who's like older, who is just, it's because it's seated and very simple the whole way in terms of, if you like, basically like, we're going to walk, but we're going to walk in just one place. I was thinking with Positano, or anywhere in the Amalfi Coast, it's a little bit more, you're on a bus, it's going through mountains, it's going back and forth. It can throw some stomachs into tumult. And
My stomach in a tumult.
well, I was thinking, especially with kids, who maybe, I don't know, it's like if you can't see straight ahead, it can
Right.
be like some real motion sickness. So I would recommend, if you are traveling with people who aren't prepared potentially for it, or aren't really sure what that means, or aren't like, it can just be a lot essentially. I would recommend Sorrento is fine, and it's also fairly, it's on a hill for sure. Like, I mean,
But the
on a
bottom of
slope.
town is reasonably
That's what I'm
flat.
thinking. It's reasonably flat, yeah. So it's pretty decent.
Can you take a ferry to either of those places from Naples?
You can.
Oh,
How
cool.
great a question. I think from Molo, which is Port Beverello in Naples, I believe. You may be from both. There's another port. It's like Porta Maceta, I believe.
Because there's the one that's mostly cruises, right?
I
And
think
then the one
so.
that's
And
more
then
for ferries.
more for ferries, but it seems like it's Calanta Porta di Massa, which is that's the other one. So it's a Molo. What do I have in the notes because I didn't want to mispronounce it. Beverello, and then the Porta di Massa.
Okay.
Both of them run ferries to all the islands. And I think they do run ferries to the to Positano, and basically though I think hydrofoils leave from one as well,
Okay.
and then other ferries leave from the other. It's a little bit strange, and the reason I mention this, they are close to each other. They're both on the water. They are not the same. It's not like dock 1 and dock 2, so definitely check your ticket. But yeah, you can absolutely take a ferry to Positano. It's a little bit more expensive. I mean, the train I think is like 4 for the Campania, for the Circumbusoviana to Sorrento. It's 15.
€4?
Yeah,
Wow.
and it's 15 for the Campania Express to Sorrento. But then if you take the ferry, it's closer to 30.
Ah, okay,
Yeah.
that's a big jump.
It is a big jump, and it's nice. It takes a decent amount of time because it is on the water to going.
I'm
But
sure it's pretty too. It's a beautiful view.
I think so. Yeah.
Oh, maybe not.
You do see a lot of the Gulf of Naples, which arguably part of it is more just very industrial.
Yeah.
Yeah. So part of it is gorgeous though.
And can you take that to Sorrento as well? A ferry? Do
You can
know?
take a ferry to Sorrento as well.
Okay.
You can take a ferry to Positano, and I believe it's a little bit funky, different companies, and so if you're listening, if you're thinking like, well, I kind of want to, I'm not sure, like if we want to. One thing we've suggested in the past is some of the ferry companies will hit every town, some will hit certain towns. So if you have money and you're like, I'm just going to spend some time in the ferry, what you could do is buy a ticket for the end of the line and just get off where you want to get off. However, some ferry companies will almost have more of like a spoke and hub structure, in the sense of like they'll bring you to Amalfi and then put you on a smaller boat to a smaller town. But if you're going to go to Positano, which is the end of the line for a lot of the ones from Salerno, then you stay on the big boat to go to the other hub, with the other spokes. So I'm saying this like it depends. You have to basically check which all different ferries have different routes is I guess what I'm trying to get at. So if you're going to, it's not necessarily the same ferry that takes you to Sorrento will take you to Positano. It really might not. It might be just one goes back and forth between Naples and Sorrento. One might hit Sorrento, then go to Capri. One goes to Capri, it might just go there directly.
So be careful about what you're booking.
Exactly. Just double check what you're booking. And also, of course, too, I mean, if you happen to be booking one of the ones that does stop at like Sorrento before going to Capri, to not get off at Sorrento if you're going to Capri. Yes. That is they will, I realize too, sometimes it's not clear. You're like, oh, we're just pulling in. This doesn't feel like an island. So that is something just to be aware of.
Yes. So speaking of Capri, you mentioned it. Do you want to talk about going to Capri?
Sure. What's your thoughts on Capri?
Okay. We've only visited once, right?
Yeah. In March.
Yeah, that was a interesting choice for us.
It was fascinating.
It was great in many ways. We won't go into it. It was incredibly cold. It was an adventurous time. If you'd like to say that you've been to Capri, which is valid, go to Capri. Mm-hmm. It's a cool place. I don't know that it's like something that has to be done. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, not done. I don't want to say like, checked it off the list. I just mean that it's not going to be potentially like a life-changing experience.
Yeah, I can see that.
But it's a lovely place. So there's Capri, right, properly, and then Capri, which is not a different island, right? It's just like higher up in Capri.
I think so. I think so.
And very likely you'll just be visiting Capri. Capri is a bit more residential. We actually ended up staying in Capri. It's cheaper to stay if you are going somewhere for overnight.
Plus, there's a bunch of there are hotels and restaurants, and you can visit. It's not like it's not like in the middle of nowhere. It's just if you've seen pictures, you've probably seen pictures of Capri rather than Capri.
Exactly, and it's bougie.
It's actually technically it might not be a different island. Oh no, it's a pretty large gulch, or I'm looking at the aerial view. It's either gulch or ravine separates the two, but they are one island. And it's a whole thing. I mean, it has their own lookout points and beaches and things like that. Mm-hmm. And there's a really fun bus from one side to the other if you guys like buses that dangle over the edge of a cliff.
And the what are the rocks called that come out of the water?
I think the Faraglioni or something to that extent.
They have a fun name. And can you only see them?
I Faraglioni.
Can you only see them from Capri?
In Capri.
Oh, in Capri.
Yeah,
okay.
That's actually there's like a path to go there.
You and I took a very brisk walk to go see them, and I couldn't remember where that was.
That is slang for incredibly cold.
Yeah, we were freezing.
Yeah.
So Capri in general, I'm sure, you can guess this, all of you, it's bougie, it's expensive. I think a lot like maybe Positano is a good example of the prices are increased because you're a tourist, but I think even
you're
more
also on an island, so
that's the thing. You're physically not trapped there, but if you want a water or a coffee, or if you need a bathroom, you are trapped for a while, and so they know that they can make you pay more really than it's worth. So if you do go, I would just be aware that things are going to cost more. I wouldn't sit down at a cafe. We've told you all story so many times, but we were encouraged to sit down at a cafe even though we didn't really want to. And
you're young and innocent and didn't understand traveling in Italy.
Yeah, exactly. And how much do we end up paying?
€8 for each cappuccino.
Instead of
it was €1.20 on the board.
Exactly.
And we just were like, that is a very expensive sitting fee.
So it's not like I regret going or anything like that, or want you to not go, listeners. But, it's expensive.
It's also, I think, and I'm obviously, I don't think we're big on, I realize there are these cheap flights everywhere, right? That obviously don't, support the environment. Don't take a cheap flight everywhere. But even so it's basically 30 euros there and €30 back.
On a flight?
On a ferry.
Okay.
It's about 25 to 30 euros. And I'm like, for the same 30 euros, you can actually get to a pretty decent distance from Naples or from Rome on a train.
Yeah.
Or if you do want to, there are flights to Barcelona. So it's kind of like, so for the same price as going there, you can go to Capri. So I'm saying that sometimes if you are on a serious budget, it can feel a little bit like is that worth the 60 euros round
I agree. If you're on a serious budget, I don't think Capri is a must see.
I mean, and I think so. Your thoughts, I think, are totally valid in the sense of it did feel very much like while it has roots as a fairly impoverished area, and then it had this sort of artistic. So I think a lot of artists, especially your English writers and whatnot, had found it and sort of moved there and kind of created a bit of a colony type thing that, or I mean, on a very functioning island, to be clear, just
Yeah.
sort of classic expat in the 1900s behavior. But it seems like it basically, once it really got going, it got going. Because I think even I've read stories in like the 60s and 70s where before it really was sort of updated with the really efficient sort of aqueduct system and things like that, where it was kind of like, you want to go to Capri? Okay. I mean, we can't. It's a bit in the middle of nowhere. It's also, and this is just me, a lot of the 2 or 3, and this is March, so the experience of going to the beaches were like not necessarily on our mind. However, we noticed a lot of them were concrete pads
Right.
near the water because it was just rock. There wasn't like a little, and I think there's some sandy beaches here and there, especially towards like Anacapri where it was not as more slopey and less sharp. But I remember being like, oh, that's a lot of concrete pads as a beach versus Sorrento versus Amalfi Coast where it was sandy or small pebbles. So I think if you're going for swimming, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. If you're going to kind of just explore because you saw it once on sort of below deck Mediterranean, you're like, okay, Capri looks awesome. Then that is worth it, I think. But I was also, if you're a family of 4 type thing, just factoring in, it's 30 per person. It does not seem like most of these places offer any sort of discount for like kids or under a certain age or over a certain age or anything like that. So it's just 30 per person per way to get there and back.
Plus probably buying lunch or
Exactly.
something
Yeah,
while
plus
you're
buying
there.
lunch or anything like that.
I will say, so obviously the Blue Grotto is in
classic.
Capri, which is, we haven't seen it in person,
No.
but it seems beautiful. And this is really a budget-minded thing, I guess. People don't talk about all the other grottos that
Tons
are
of grottos.
on there are grottos aplenty on the
Yeah.
Amalfi Coast and I believe the Cilento Coast as well. So if you have your heart set on kayaking near, or I'm not sure how many you can kayak in, taking a small boat trip into one of the grottos, and you don't want to spend the money to get all the way over to Capri and then, have to buy expensive food there and whatnot, there are other options along that Sorrento and Amalfi Coast
Exactly. Yes, tons.
that are very similar to that experience.
They just put you in a cave and like, it's cool, isn't it? Let's go get some lunch. This has been fun. So that being said, from islands, I think that, I mean, again, if you want to, I also please don't, if you're really excited for going and you're like, oh, that just made me not excited. It is an amazing place. And if you're like, if you're already budgeted for it, you're ready to go, you're already excited.
Oh yeah, it's going to be great.
Yeah. Even in March, we were like, this is kind of a wild place. There were some really beautiful walks. Again, it felt very much in like the Amalfi Coast way where they kind of were like, we're going to connect these areas with passageways, and kind of pave them or use stones. So it felt really gorgeous in terms of walking around, even in March where it was brisk and freezing and just the coldest I've ever been in my life. It was still really beautiful. And then especially because you kind of come around these turns and all of a sudden it's this gorgeous expanse. Are these stones coming out of the water? So I think that was really lovely. I think even going between Anacapri and Capri was really lovely. Walking around Anacapri was lovely as well. So it could also be worth it. However, we actually spent the night because a day trip felt like a huge expense for, I mean, it was, I think it would have been 120, which is what we spent anyway, but like just for the day, we're like, no, we're going to have to stay there. So I think that was something that we factored in just because we're like, if we're going to go, we're going to go. Just also keep in mind, if you do happen to go in the off season, which is just not the summer, a lot of things are closed.
Yes, really good
so
point.
It does feel like a bit like a ghost town. And weirdly, Anacapri was nice because it was more residential. So it was a little bit like, oh, not a ghost town. Plus there's some villas there, some Roman villas, things like that. So there are definitely things to see if you're also somebody who's interested in history and want to kind of just see what island history would have been like pre-collapse. I think a lot of it is left over from pre-collapse of the Roman Empire. So, and then all the pirating started and then it just went downhill sort of thing. So that wasn't very happy.
No, it's super cool. And I definitely would say if you're already planning on going, if you have your heart set on going, if you've already booked things there, I don't want to poo-poo that. It is a magical and fascinating island. But it's just that if you had a couple options in your mind, and Capri has been really built up, I think, in movies and in media to be this incredible place. I mean, it is. It's beautiful. But I don't want you to have FOMO, essentially, if you choose not to go.
Yes. No, I think that's a good one. Don't have FOMO. On that note, there's also Ischia and Procida, which you've talked about before in other episodes, but still I wanted to kind of mention getting there in case you are looking at day trips, or if you're like, I like the idea of an island, but you've convinced me that Capri is not the island of choice. It depends, I think. They are, I mean, I will say on a certain level, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other, and I mean that in just the most loving possible way. They are islands literally next to each other in a place that had very similar sort of histories. So it's not that wildly different.
Ischia, though, has natural thermal baths, right?
They do, yeah.
Which is cool.
And tons of spas. And if you do, if you have any interest at all in a spa, especially like a thermal bath spa, I highly recommend Ischia. A lot of people go for that sort of soaking in a tub, basically. It's also a much bigger island. There are like nature paths. There are walking and hiking and cycling, and there are other towns on Ischia. I think Capri is Capri, not a Capri. On Capri, on the island of Capri, and Ischia has a couple different towns dotted around the sort of perimeter, if you will. It seems like it's a little bit more functioning, if that makes sense. It's also a lot cheaper to get to, depending on which ferry you take.
Really?
Yeah, one of the ferries, and I was like, I thought it was not a scam, but like I was like, oh, it's like a rowboat or something. No, it's a €6 ferry that gets you there.
That's crazy.
I know, six.
That does kind of sound like, oh, they're going to put you in a boat and you pull yourself across.
Yes. I thought it's like one of those ones with a chain and you have to pull yourself across the chain.
That's what I was thinking.
It's like Knight's Tale all over again. Ridiculous. And no, so from 6, and then the same companies offer the €25 ferries to Capri. We also offer it to Ischia. So it's a pretty decent range, but there's also a couple of the 15 to €17 range if you're like, okay, 6 is too good to be true. I feel bad for running that ferry. You're just like, I'm just trying to run a low-cost ferry. I'm real, I promise. So that being said, is that one also could be kind of fun, especially again if it's in the summer. I'm thinking, especially with like a family, and you're like, we are hot and sticky, and we need to get out of Naples. That could be a really cool place because again, getting to Amalfi Coast or Sorrento, minimum, I think the Campania Express is 40 minutes to Sorrento. The Circumposto is an hour and a half to Sorrento. Tacking on another 20 to 40 minutes on the bus to Positano, it's just, I mean, that's 2.5 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of a nightmare.
And how long does it take to get to Ischia?
I think it's only 40 minutes or 49 minutes, something like that.
Okay.
They depend. Again, I think one of them is a hydrofoil, so it gets a little quicker. So it's not that long. I mean, it's still a decent amount of time, but open water, nice air, cooling down, get the island. It's also, again, one of the reasons people go there is because it is more reasonable in terms of prices. It's a little bit more frequented by Napolitano tourists, or not tourists, like summerers, people who go somewhere in the summer. Vacationers. So it's a little bit more in line with what you might see on the mainland and less what you would see in Capri. In case you were thinking like, I want to go on an island, I want to do it slightly on a budget. What do I want to do? Ischia would be the thing. Plus there's a spa.
I would say that you probably can't find things for as cheap as you can in Naples just because Naples has such great inexpensive options specifically for food. But I think you're right. Ischia, like compared to Capri or Sorrento or the Amalfi Coast, would probably be a little bit less.
Mm-hmm. It is. And actually weirdly, so Procida, interestingly, is kind of expensive to get to. It's in line with Capri, that 25 to 30 euros, despite the fact that most people have never heard of Procida. However,
how do you pronounce it?
Procida?
Procida?
Procida.
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 I have no idea.
Procida.
Procida.
Okay.
Procida. Aviato. Please do not sue us, makers of Silicon Valley.
The TV show.
The TV show. Yeah, not the place.
Or the place. Please don't sue us.
Yeah, my God, please don't sue us. But no, so Procida. I'm going to pronounce it differently every time, and I apologize.
Amazing.
Is kind of interesting too. I think they actually have this thing that Capri and Ischia don't list, but on Procida, you cannot bring a car in the summer months. You can bring a car in like legit. You can in the off season. Or so you can't bring a car in the off season. You can in the summer months.
What?
Which is even more confusing to me. Yeah.
Why?
And I actually wrote that down because I was so confused, because I was like, I get in the off season where it's like there might not be a lot of transportation, you can bring it, but in the off season they don't want you bringing a car, but you can in the summer. And I'm like, who's bringing a car to? It's a small island, but it's smaller than Ischia. I mean, at least from the photos, it looks smaller than Ischia. So I don't know if it actually physically is. I'm looking at a map now because I'm like, am I like just wrong? Yeah, it's a fifth of the size of Ischia. Ischia's got like tons
How big is it compared to Capri?
It's a little bit bigger than Capri, but not by much.
It is bigger. Okay, I thought it was smaller.
And it's basically the main town, Procida, is like almost a third of the island is taken up by that.
Okay.
And they, again, I don't know if it's like in the summer people just take their cars there from like Naples to drive around, and because it's not that, I don't know, like, but it's a pretty expensive ticket.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't really understand, but basically Procida does have a little fishing village. It was famously in the Talented Mr. Ripley with Matt Damon and Jude Law and Gwyneth Paltrow, I think, was in that one. Was she played Jude Law's?
I think she was.
Yeah, like love interest. So in that actually was filmed in, I think it was supposed to take place in sort of a loosely.
It was filmed in Procida?
Mm-hmm.
I always thought it was filmed in Positano.
I think it was supposed to take place in Positano, but
okay.
or something like that, and they wanted something more like authentic, and that was so it was
Okay.
Procida, which is a fishing village essentially turned sort of kind of not even resort town. Resort town's too much. It's just it's a cool place, and it looks like they'll get from the photos. And I don't mean this in a bad way. Just I mean this way of tempering expectations. Like from all the photos are this like really colorful fishing village, like you might see in Cinque Terre, like you might see in Amalfi Coast, like you might see in Procida because it's in Procida. And I just wanted to say that again. I'm so sorry. And but like so a lot of the photos, like once you kind of get past those first few like streets, it just turns into the normal colored thing, like what stucco and this and that you might
Yeah.
see in anywhere
Anywhere
else in
in
southern
Italy.
Italy. Yeah. So I was like, oh, so there's a little bit of a
Interesting.
like we do this for the tourism, we do this for the Instagram shots. But it does also seem again like it's closer, it's much closer to Naples. So if cost isn't an issue, but time is, because I think Capri is about an hour and a half, maybe a little bit quicker on the hydrofoil, but Ischia is about 40 something minutes, and then Procida is a little closer. So it could be if timing's an issue, if you're just like I just kind of want to go somewhere and come back, then Procida seems like a super lovely option. Oh, sorry,
Okay.
Procida.
Amazing.
I know I just had one more chance to say it and I need to say it. And then last I did want to mention, just because I think we're kind of, that's, I think all the islands and all the things I did want to mention too is if you did want to also visit, it's also possible, as we mentioned before, to go down to Salerno. You can take a train, a fast train, anything like that. The fast train I think is only about 40 minutes to Salerno, and then go out that way. If you're going to like Vietri su Mare, for example, which is the first town on the Amalfi Coast, arguably from Salerno,
Yeah.
it's it's super difficult to get to from Positano in terms of the bus has to switch. You have to switch buses in Amalfi. So if you're coming from Naples, you're taking a train to Sorrento, switching to the bus, waiting for the bus, potentially missing it because it's already filled with people, taking it past Positano to Amalfi, switching again, going through the same thing again, and going to Vietri su Mare. So it's a lot quicker just to go down to Salerno and go over.
Yeah. So
How?
basically, you go too far south in
Yes.
order, you go to Salerno, which is past Vietri sul Mare, and then go back up.
And I would say it's if you know where you want to go, if you want to go to like Ravello, or if you want to go to Vietri su Mare, Citaro, or I think there's I don't know, I'm trying to think of anything. If there's something specific, if you're like I have an idea or I have a place in mind I really want to go to, see which way it is compared to Amalfi Coast. If it's east of Amalfi Coast, I would recommend going to Salerno and then going out there. If it's west of Amalfi Coast, it makes sense to either take a ferry to Positano or go through Sorrento. Ravello, however, is north of Amalfi Coast, so that one is kind of six of one, half dozen the other. Unfortunately, it's just up in the hills there. So that was just simply as a way of kind of a workaround. It doesn't feel as much as a fun day trip because you're not like hugging. Because I will say, even the Circumvesuviana, I think Campania Express is a bit. Some of it's underground, some of it's kind of like secluded, but the Circumvesuviana is very much like you can see the ocean for a lot of it. So I think there's a sense like the day trip, it kind of builds up anticipation. It's like, oh, I'm seeing the ocean the whole way. Then we switch for this bus. You're cut into these beautiful lemon groves, these pine trees, this really evocative rocks and structures, and like just like this is very unformed clay kind of feeling. Like you could see why this was so inspiring to so many writers. And then you get to your day trip of Positano, wherever it is a lot better than, oh, I spent 40 minutes on a train and then I was there. It's a little bit of a different feeling. So I think it also depends on the kind of traveler you are. If you just want to get there as soon as possible, if you're like, you know what, the journey is all that matters. The destination is an overpriced Aperol spritz and toes in the water.
Yeah, exactly. I want to say quickly before we end, basically talking about if you're taking a car, if you're wanting to drive around Italy, you and I
Yeah.
would never recommend having or driving a car in Naples.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
It's people who drive there are incredible, but it's a nightmare. You will also potentially be charged more by your rental car company to take your car into Naples. They will likely specifically ask, especially if you rent it anywhere in southern Italy. Likewise, if you're wanting to drive, Sorrento might be fine to drive to. It seems pretty easy for driving around,
Yeah,
but
I think so.
anywhere on the Amalfi Coast is pretty treacherous for driving. You can only drive on certain days depending on your
License plate, yeah.
plate number, and also in Amalfi and in Positano specifically, the price to park is exorbitant.
Yes,
It's like
it
10
is.
euros an hour.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend driving. It's a headache and it can be expensive for parking. Just as a note. Taxis, aren't they expensive? I was thinking like,
They are a bit expensive, especially because I think a lot of them are Naples taxis, if I'm not mistaken,
okay.
and they're pretty pricey.
So if you're thinking about, for instance, if you have like a lot of luggage or something, you want to take the train all the way down to Salerno because there will likely be more spaces for luggage. And then if you're thinking, oh, we'll just take a taxi up to, somewhere on the Amalfi Coast, it will be expensive.
It would be expensive, but also even if you're like that's not an issue, I'm fine with expensive. You should triple check to make sure that the taxi can actually physically take you there because they're not rude necessarily, but they aren't superhuman either, if that makes sense. So if they're like, yes, so this is where I leave you. You're up about 40 meters. I don't know how to get there in this car. Like, I think I'm going to crash because either the roads are super, super, super narrow. Like they might be able to get in. Essentially, there's a lot of places that are one way, very narrow roads up or down hills. So even if they go up, they have to go back down in reverse or
Yeah.
figure out a way to turn around in somebody's, like, I don't know, some sort of, again, miracle.
And some places on the Amalfi Coast, for instance, where you might be staying, and we talked about this in the like Amalfi Coast episodes, look at your lodgings on Google Maps essentially, because if you're taking a taxi, they might only be able to drop you off on the main road, and then you might have to walk your luggage up or down through town because there might not be roads to your hotel.
Yeah.
So that's just a quick note.
Not something you want to find out at 9:30 at night when you're super tired after traveling and being, where is my lodgings?
Exactly.
So I think that's everything, though. That's for day trips. We just want to kind of do a brief little touch. We've talked about this before in the previous episodes, and we didn't want to go over too much of the same territory because not much has changed. They are still islands, and they are still coastal towns, but we wanted to basically kind of keep this update going. In the description, I'll throw in some links, too, for some articles if you're just looking for something to save on this is good information. We actually are headed to so-and-so. How do I get there again? And it's going to be links to like how much everything costs and how to get there, different options going, this way, going that way. So if any of this was like, felt interesting, but also maybe too much information and you didn't
Right.
write it down, there will be links in the description to our website.
Awesome.
So thank you all so much for listening.
Thank you for listening. Tanti abbracci.